thankful for waving stories. Hold on to the lifetime we won't get back. I know these rivers carry on. People tend to stick to you after time. Places tend to do the same as we do. This river carries on and on.
All right, welcome to another episode of Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake LaMore, and today we are, even though this isn't coming out on Veterans Day, we are deeming this our Veterans Day episode, and I think it's a great one. I'm really I'm sitting down with two people that I was hoping to sit down with, or at least someone from their organization and business, and it just so happens they're both veterans, so it just kind of works out. So let's please welcome Natalie and Blane from Steam Hollow Brewing, in Manteno. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start at the very beginning. As I said before we started recording, that's what I like to know. I like to know where people come from and what their background is. So are you both native to Kankakee County, or where did both of you come from?
So I'll start. So I'm kind of native. I grew up in the city of Chicago.
Okay.
Moved here in grade school, and then I left at 18 and went into the Navy. So I'm from the area. We moved back here about 10 years ago. Blane is from Oregon, born and raised. And then we spent like 20-something years in San Diego where we met. And then actually almost 12 years ago, we moved back here to Manteno where my mom and dad lived for like 20-something years.
So your parents are then originally from Chicago as well, and did they move down here like after retiring, or?
When I joined the Navy, they moved to Manteno.
Oh, okay.
So we lived in Bourbonnais for a while, and then they kind of rooted down there in Manteno.
Had they known about Manteno before? Did you have any other family that lived?
No, I just think they thought it was a nice, quiet town because it's a great place to raise kids, even though their kids are at that point older. But it worked out well because when we moved back here, we didn't know where we were going to move to. We moved back because my dad passed away. So I was like, my mom's here in Manteno. We just kind of looked out. We found a great house, and now she actually lives with us. So she sold her house, and now we're all together. But it just worked out, how it was meant to be.
Oh, that's cool. Are you the youngest, oldest?
I'm the oldest.
Family? You're the oldest of the family. Okay. So how many siblings?
I have two brothers.
Okay. Okay. And how do you Blane? Oregon. So is it Oregon or Oregon? How do people from Oregon say
Oregon.
it?
People from Oregon say Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was literally on the air the other day. I can't remember if I was on the Valley or on WFAV, but Oregon came up in something I was talking about. And I was like, man, I'm once again confused on how to properly pronounce it.
Yeah, when people say Oregon, it's like people from Illinois saying Illinois.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty comparable.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And one of my best friends is originally from Ohio, and he called me out some years ago about how I said Illinois. I would always say Illinois, and he's like, no. He's like, you see, that's where a lot of Illinoisans make that mistake. There's no, it's not L, it's IL.
Yeah.
It's Illinois. So like after he said that, I'm like, I felt so stupid.
I've been doing this my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. So like, up until there was probably some 5 years that he had this conversation with me. So, yeah, I always like make sure I'm saying Illinois instead of Illinois.
Yeah. So I actually grew up off the grid in the mountains in Oregon, out in the Rogue National Forest. So we lived way out.
And how far were you from, I mean, what's the Portland is Portland the capital?
No, Salem's the capital. Portland's on the very north side, like you could spit and hit Washington from Portland. I lived on almost the south side of Oregon, where California was closer to us than the nearest town.
So what was it like growing up in the mountains? I mean,
It was awesome.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. You could do anything you wanted.
Is it stereotypically like what I'm thinking? I'm just imagining waking up in the morning, drinking your coffee, and then you you put on your flannel, and you go chop some wood. I mean, I don't know.
Yes. So as kids, we would wake up early in the morning. We would do our schoolwork, and then we would go to work. So when the sun started coming up, it was time to go to work. So we had like our own garden. We had goats and chickens. We had to chop all our own wood. We had to work on our dirt road a lot because it would get washed out. If the sun was up, you were likely just working.
When you say schoolwork,
we were homeschooled.
You were homeschooled.
Yeah, there were no public schools anywhere near us.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How close was the near, or like where was the nearest public school?
If you went straight as like a raven flies, about an hour.
Okay.
Wow. But if you tried to drive, being Oregon can't do straight roads like in here, it was like 3-4 hours.
Yeah, so that's not happening.
Yeah.
So how did I assume, was it your mother, or was there like a group of other
it was
nearby?
Just my mom, dad, my little brother, and me.
What?
And then a few other strange mountain folk that used to hang out with us.
Now, compared to, after getting out of Oregon and meeting other people over the years, how do you feel like your education compares to them? Like, do you feel like you've got the upper on some people?
Probably. Mostly because when you're out there, you get more of like an engineering sort of mind. So one of my favorite sayings is, I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none, but still a master of one.
I love that saying.
There's not too many things I can't run into that I can't figure out, even if I'm just jerry-rigging it, and then I have to go research it to actually do it properly later. But I can usually get most things working.
I would imagine that comes from your father, right? Or maybe your mother as well, both sides of the family.
It mostly comes with everything. The mountain breaks, and you got to get it working to continue.
Yeah, because you can't. The hardware store's not just down the street. It's not like you can go to like in Manteno. You can't just go to Whitmore Ace Hardware and get your.
We're huge fans of duct tape.
I would imagine. How long had your family been in Oregon?
My whole life.
Yeah. Where did they originally come from?
Oregon.
Yeah. Like no, seriously. No, like you don't know.
Yeah, no.
Like, it traces back.
I think my mom was born in Gresham, Oregon. I've only been there once or twice in my life, but it's up like the northern side of Oregon. And then my father, I'm not sure where he was born.
So what did your father do for a living then?
Nothing.
Just had a farm?
No, he passed away a long time ago.
But growing up, though, was it just all about the homestead? And
I think he used to work at like an auto body shop or something like that before I was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how did the Navy come into play for you?
Well, I left home when I was 14 and went north into Bend, Oregon, which is right in the center. And a family friend owned a computer business. So I used to get paid $100 a week just to screw motherboards into the cases.
That's
it? All I would do.
You wouldn't even
every day
touch anything with programming.
He wouldn't trust me to do nothing like that for a while. And then he was like, all right, now you can put like, and this is before motherboards had everything built into them. Like you had to put, your NIC in there. You had to put the video card in. He's like, all right, you got to do it this way. And I probably destroyed at least $4,000 worth of parts just because I plug in the power the wrong direction. This is back when you had two boards and they had to go in a certain direction or they would fry everything. Now it's pretty easy. It's just one plug, but I did that until I was 18 and then joined the military.
So was it one of those situations where your parents were like, yeah, we're cool with you, leaving home and learning how to do this skill set? So
most mountain folk, when you turn 13, you're considered nearly just an adult. Like, you get your first buck knife, you get your first rifle that you get to keep in your room or go out with it. So you're treated a little more like adults. So if you want to leave, you can, so long as they know you're going to go somewhere that's not, stupid.
Yeah. So what's the wilderness like surrounding you up in the mountains in Oregon?
Peaceful. Beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Did you get to experience a lot of time there,
Oh, yeah.
Natalie? Yeah.
I've been to Oregon many times before I met him, but then we took 2 big trips up there and before we got married, and then we went back with the kids already twice.
I know people get concerned with the wildlife when they're out there. So do you have any interesting stories about, and I mean, you're talking about, you got your first knife and, your first rifle. So I'm assuming you guys hunted.
We did hunt. Yeah. There's most of the wildlife in Oregon's pretty docile. Like I've seen people standing on rattlesnakes and not know it. And they lift their foot and the snake will just slither off. We used to throw scorpions at each other for fun.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. And they won't kill you. They just hurt a little bit. But...
I didn't realize scorpions were up there. I thought it'd be too cold.
Well, we've got 3 different kinds of squirrel. We got the little yellow ones. We got the bigger yellow ones and then the little blackish blue ones.
Which ones are the most dangerous?
I think the little yellow ones are, because we never really mess with those. Like, we instinctively knew not to play with those ones, but everything else was fair game. Yeah.
I guess I always assumed that the scorpions were just in the desert and that was it.
So Oregon, half of Oregon is high desert. So there's a lot of desert out there. But we used to play with all sorts of really stupid things to play with.
And is it the bigger the scorpion, the safer you are as far as the stinging?
Yeah, because
goes?
they've learned not to waste all their venom. I mean, they're not going to kill you anyways. Most of them, they just hurt a lot. Like you swell up, you feel a lot of pain, but most of the time you won't die from it. Do
you have to get some kind of treatment so that the poison doesn't?
The treatment is pretty much your parents and everyone around you tells you how dumb you are for doing what you did. I hope you learn your lesson. Nah, I'm going to do this again tomorrow. But I'm going to win this time.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Oregon, I think the most dangerous thing you got to really worry about is bobcats.
Yes.
So bears are super docile. They want nothing to do with you. They might look at you, sniff around, and they're just going to go away. Most cougars won't bother you. Wolves like just following you around and watching. But bobcats, because they're not on the ground a lot of time, they're above you. They like to just be like super dicks and just drop on things.
I have some family friends, and I can't remember where in Oregon they live. The name escapes me, but the last time they visited us here in Illinois, they were telling us about a bobcat situation where some people were getting killed by some bobcats in their area, and it seemed to be a kind of a happening more often kind of thing.
Yeah, bobcats are a lot like house cats. They're all a little demonic. They all have that look like they just want to hurt you.
Yeah,
even though you're feeding them, but they still are like, they're just like, when you sleep tonight, I could do stuff.
Yeah, right. They're looking through your window.
Yeah, that's kind of how bobcats are. They're like house cats.
Well, that's cool. It's cool it's just cool to learn these things about other areas and where people come from. I'm always fascinated by it. So I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, but did you two meet in the Navy?
No. So it's a weird story. So we met after we were both out. Through our mutual Navy friends, but we actually found out that we were on the same ship together at the same exact time. We just didn't know it. It wasn't even a big ship either. So,
and you didn't even, did you you look kind of familiar.
So when this is the USS Duluth that we were on, I was actually an officer and he was enlisted. So we wouldn't have really been hanging out together on the ship or anything anyways.
Because he was higher ranking?
No, I was higher ranking.
You were higher ranking.
Much higher ranking than me.
Okay.
He still salutes me, by the way. So.
Yeah.
But I had also just gotten out of officer candidate school, which is like boot camp for officers. So my head was shaved. I had like a crew cut, which is not a very good look for me. So he thinks he remembers me being on the bridge of the ship, but then there wasn't many females on that ship anyways. But I don't remember him at all. So it was like,
If you could see me, you'd see that I'm not very memorable anyway.
Well, I would imagine, obviously, in the Navy, you didn't have that luscious beard you have.
No, I did not. I looked like I was probably 11 years old.
Yes, he did. That's why he's not allowed to shave it. He would look like he's 11.
Be like, yeah, I think we need to talk, honey. I saw the lawyer today.
No, I always threaten him that if he chops it off, I will serve him papers just to make a point. So, maybe not go through with it, but definitely making the point. That being happy.
So let's since you're both Navy veterans, let's talk about your experience in the United States Navy. So you we'll start with Blane. So you joined when you were 18 as well.
Yep.
And so how did that start for you, or how when were you thinking, I'm gonna join the Navy?
So I did computers from about 14 to 18, and I got into, like, by the time I was 18, I was pretty good at programming. I knew several different languages. I could build pretty much anything in it, but it was also super annoying. Just because you would get calls and people would be like, my computer's broken and it's not working. Well, is it turned on? Those kind of things. And it was always like, well, I'm turning it on and off, but they're really turning off like the monitor and not. So I was like, this is super, super annoying to deal with this. And then so I started hanging out with a friend of mine, and we didn't make really smart decisions a lot. So we were getting a little bit of trouble. And I was like, I might just join the military and like go see the world. If I go in the Navy, I can travel. So I went and talked to a recruiter, and like a week and a half later, I was going to MEPS and then going off to boot camp. So I went to boot camp. It was the first time I'd ever really come to Illinois. When I was in boot camp. Yeah, it was in Great Lakes.
Oh,
and
okay.
I was a legitimate superhero because I could run 2 miles faster than anybody and hardly break a sweat. But it wasn't until a few weeks later that my the drill instructor was like, yeah, so how's the breathing going? I was like, wow, I'm like sweating and I'm breathing hard. He's like, yeah, you're from a mountain where there's no oxygen and you came down here. Now you're like used to it. So now you're like us normal humans. I'm like, like I thought I was going to be like a superhero forever.
that must have been, yeah, you were able to go so fast.
Yeah, because where I'm from, you're thousands and thousands of feet up. There's little oxygen. And I'm used to running all over the mountainside like that, and then come down here where it's flat. And I was like, man, I can go forever. This is great.
My mother visited my brother Josh a couple of years ago when he was working for some of the national parks in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And she could not handle the elevation.
Yeah, you get altitude sickness.
Yes.
Yep.
And so for those of us from Illinois, from the flatlands, we go out to lands where it's, up and down and up, we get that. I never experienced that because I've driven through Utah and Oregon and those type of states where, there's a lot of ups and downs and stuff. And I never got sick, but it just might, obviously your ears would pop and, almost like being on an airplane.
Oh yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, so you get into the Navy, you're training at, you said Grays Lake.
Yeah. Great Lakes.
Yeah. Great Lakes. Yeah.
So it's only like 3 months of boot camp. Then I went to an A school. And my first command was the Connie, the carrier. And I got on there, and 4 days later we deployed. And we went to the Middle East in that one, to the Gulf. And that's when like Bush came on and said, we're going to war. Like I was actually on the helm when he said that.
So this was after
2001.
Okay. So it was 9/11.
Yeah.
Or right after.
Yeah, right after 9/11. And then I did that tour. I got to see a bunch of different countries. I had a blast on that ship. And then when I came back, they decommissioned that ship because it was old. So they were getting rid of it. And I ended up going to another ship that a week later deployed again. So I did another tour. Then I came back and they decommissioned that ship. So I went to another ship, and that's when I ended up
all
on
these old ships. What do they? By the way, what do they do with? I know they used to sink them, but they do that anymore.
They sink some of them. They sell some of them. I think the Connie actually got sold to another country, but it sank on the way there.
Oh my god!
So I was like, wow, that's good timing. And then I ended up on the
I feel like
Duluth.
that would be like if I was the person buying it and it sank on the way there, I'd be like, I want my money back.
Oh yeah,
like,
I want a full refund.
What the hell is this?
Yeah.
You told me it wasn't going to sink.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we were on tour on that, we actually had a boiler blow up like in the Gulf, which ended up being a huge thing for us. But no, that
what
ship was
happens when
old.
A boiler blows?
It's just a lot of fire. It's really hot, a lot of fire. You don't move very quickly after that for a little while. So then you got to get other ships to come help you, like merchant marine ships, or usually like an LPD brings stuff to you, and then the machinists start fixing it.
I was going to say, is there someone on board to fix that?
Yeah, all those machinists can do it. They're all trained in that. So
What another thing? Speaking of decommissioning, you would think they would maybe take apart some of these ships and reuse some of those pieces for other things.
Well, once
right?
they're in like the stage of being decommissioned, all that stuff's super old.
Yeah.
Like most
Yeah.
of those ships are being held together by paint.
Yeah.
Duct tape.
Yeah,
I would
duct
just-
tape and paint.
I would just think, what is it? Iron, metal, some
Yep.
type of metal.
A lot of rust that you're always grinding off and then repainting over.
Oh, then I suppose you can't really recycle it too much if
No.
it's got all that rust on it.
No, you don't want
So-
to do that.
Yeah.
But then I ended up on the Duluth. I spent 2 weeks on that and it deployed. So then I was on my third tour. And the thing
Was
that
it
really,
all to the Middle East?
yeah, all of it was to the Gulf. Everything on the West Coast usually goes to the Gulf. The thing that really chapped my ass about it is I had a choice of where I wanted to go. Like I was one of the top guys in the classes in the boot camp, so I got to choose. And I was choosing between Japan, which I really wanted to do, and San Diego. I was like, well, San Diego is only like 20 hours from my house. I could go on 3-day weekends. And then my entire time I spent overseas anyways. It's like, I should have just went to Japan.
Why didn't I go to
I
Japan?
should have just gone to Japan.
It's funny how that works out to where you think, oh, I'll go to the location that's closest
Yeah.
to my home.
Yeah. No, it didn't work out.
And you
for me.
weren't even home.
No, didn't even. I spent like maybe 3 weeks in San Diego the entire time I was in the military.
I was recently talking to another Navy veteran, and it was during the time that we were heavily in the Middle East in the 2000s, and he was, I think he was commissioned or he was ordered to report to be on land, and I don't know if it was exactly work with the Army. I forget exactly what it was, the specific name and everything for it.
Probably a CB or something, maybe.
I wish I could remember. He was on the podcast not too long ago. Maybe it's been a couple months already. And I was just curious if that had happened to you, or what happens when the Navy was deployed to, the Gulf during that time.
So I never met any Army guys when I was in. A lot of Marines though. A lot of Marines come on board with us, especially like on the Duluth. The entire aft end of the ship was nothing but Marines that we were transporting over there. So usually like the well deck is something you can sink in the water and you fill it up with like 7-ton, 11-ton trucks and all their equipment. And then when we get them there, we drop them off. And then they go do all the dirty work.
And so then what happens? Does your ship just kind of hover around in the Gulf?
We just do a lot of figure eights. We watch the water. We scout out a lot of the like oil rigs that are out on the water, make sure no one's messing with them. But it's a lot of figure eights.
So making sure no one is messing with those oil rigs, were those American oil rigs, or was it like protecting a foreign
I think it was
oil rigs?
they were
kinda
probably mostly foreign and we were just protecting them
from
for our own interest,
Yeah.
likely.
Whatever, maybe like terrorist groups or whatever that would
Yeah.
want to.
Over my pay grade.
Yeah, I was just curious.
They said stand with this firearm and look in that direction. Roger that.
Now, was it? I would assume it was pretty quiet, or
We had a few shots fired, but there wasn't a lot going on. Most of it was like, when I was on either the 50 cal or the 25 cal watch, you would watch the water to see if anything was floating in it. Because if there was like an ice chest or a goat floating, you had to report it because it might be full of explosives. And then they would, we would steer the ship away, launch a helo and shoot at it to see if it blew up or not.
Well, that sounds like target practice.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, we'll see if it blows up, and then you're probably disappointed when it doesn't.
No, yeah. I don't think any of them ever blew up.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So people would just drop these things in the water just so they would explode, or they could potentially have explosives in them?
They could potentially have explosives in them because, you run into them, they explode. Well, now they're sinking a Navy ship.
Yeah.
Kind of like they did with the coal, I think, in 95,
Oh, that was later. I forgot.
98.
I was there, but I think it was 98, 99. Yeah.
Oh, I think I remember what you're talking about. Was that
Yeah.
the U.S. coal?
Yeah.
It was bombed in Yemen.
Yeah, and that ended up being an Osama bin Laden thing, right? If I'm correct.
I don't know who
I
took
don't
credit
remember
for
at this
that.
point. It's been a
Yeah.
while.
I know that's
I
been a
don't
long
remember.
time ago, right?
I'm
I
not
can't
sure.
believe 98's been that long
I
ago,
know.
but I vaguely remember that. And I'm sure someone's listening to this right now and yelling
I know.
at us with like,
Yeah.
no, it was this, you know. I was only 8 years old in '98, so you know I have my memory is just you know only little bits and pieces, you know. So then you're on your third tour with
Yep.
Duluth. What comes next?
So we were in the Gulf, and when we were coming back, we found out they were going to decommission that ship. And I was like, great. So I pulled some strings with some of the chiefs and some of the higher ups there that I knew. And I was like, can I get on a new ship? Like, so I don't have to keep doing this. So I was supposed to go onto the Green Bay out of Virginia so I could do like a South Pack. And that's where you do like the Horn of Africa, I think. And so it was going to be something different.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, on the way back, I ended up breaking my spine and hip. So I got flown out. And
How did you do that?
I was working late, spraying out of space, like painting it, like with a spray rig. And the ladder wells are not as wide as a spray rig is. So you have to like lift up and slide it down the handrails. And it went off the one side a little bit too much and took me with it. And I landed on it.
Sounds painful.
Yeah, you know, a little bit. So
I love your reaction. Everything. Like, yeah, you know, no big deal.
we survived.
Scorpion, yeah, no big deal. Rattlesnake, whatever. You know.
We survived it. Figure if you don't survive it, you're not going to know anyway.
That's very true. So you broke your spine.
Yep.
And then what?
I got flown back to the States and started doing physical therapy. So got out of a wheelchair and walking again, and now I move around like I'm brand new.
So
Not brand new. He's walked with a cane for years and bent over for years.
Hand me that beer. Well, yeah. So was it at that time that your years of service was ending?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, that was I had planned to do 20 years. Like I wanted to stay in forever. I loved being in the service. It was great.
so how many did you end up doing then? Or did that injury
I did a
set you
little over
back?
3.5 years before I got injured.
When in those cases, I know some people when they have injuries like that, they get honorably discharged. Was that your case? Or
Yes. So I
Okay.
was honorably discharged. Back then the VA wasn't super good, so it was hard to get benefits. But fortunately, while I was at the VA, hollering at the desk lady there that, you know, I'm a disabled veteran. How do I get help? Marine actually heard me, and he worked for the Purple Heart organization. So he came out, grabbed my wheelchair, told her we'll be right back. And then like 10 minutes later, I had benefits. So the Purple Heart order ended up helping me get the benefits so that I could get like back on my feet and get all the physical therapy I needed and whatnot.
Was it quite intensive for the physical therapy? Or
Actually, tell you the truth, I think the physical therapy probably hurt more than the injury. Like there was a bed they used to put you on that would like pull you apart. Like they would like,
it sounds very medieval.
yeah, it felt medieval. Like they would tie your chest down and then tie your hips down and the bed would start separating. And you have like a panic button that's supposed to stop it. Well, like the third time I was on it, they forgot to plug the panic button in. So I'm like clicking this button and it just keeps going. I'm like, oh my God, we are going to get broken in half right now.
I'm gonna be two, like the magicians in Las Vegas. They're
Well,
just gonna
whenever
cut me-
I watch
hold
like
me in half.
Deadpool 2 and the Juggernaut comes over, it's like, I'm going to rip you in half. That reminds me of that bed. I'm like, I know what you're feeling. I know how this feels.
I got you, bro. I know exactly what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And then, so you're finally getting the therapy you need.
Yep.
And at that time, where were you guys in Illinois?
No, I was living in San Diego, and I ended up getting a job in a lab building like networks and robots and shit like that. Oh my God.
That's okay.
Okay. I ended up just building stuff that was for like the Navy and Marine Corps. So I ended up just being a lab rat for a while. And then it was 5 years, maybe 8 years after I got out that we ended up meeting through mutual friends.
Yeah.
So it's funny because mutual friends like, oh, come hang out with us. I want you to meet somebody. And I was like, oh, And I was kind of a geek back then, so I was playing World of Warcraft. Don't
Still
hate
a
me.
geek. Still a
Oh
geek.
my
Don't hate me.
gosh.
Yeah, this was
At
way.
that time,
it was the game to play.
The thing,
it
man.
was the game, and I was good at it. And so I was like, I'm in the middle of like this raid with my roommate. She's like, well, it's this girl I want you to meet. And I was like, all right, I'll be right there. So my roommate was mad. He's like, but you're supposed to be our healer. I'm like, you'll live. And so I left, got on the trolley, went to downtown. I go into this bar and I see this blonde sitting there, really bright hair. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not sure where my friend is, but I'm going to go talk to this girl. So I started talking to her. And then my friend came and was like, oh, yeah, I want to introduce you to Natalie. And I was like, oh, wow, I've already introduced myself. I saw her and I was like, I didn't care what your friend you wanted me to introduce me to. I was like, I'm talking to this girl no matter what.
That was just like that's meant to be.
Yeah.
Did you know that Natalie was a Navy veteran at that time?
No.
Because I kind of imagine your friend being like, oh, well, she's a Navy veteran too. And you're like,
No.
oh, God.
No, our friend
Yeah.
didn't mention anything like that. She was like, I just want you to introduce you to this girl. And I was like, all right. But I ended up seeing her and started talking to her anyways. It turns out she was the one I was supposed to get introduced to anyhow. So it ended up being good.
Okay.
It took a long time, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't instant.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have a beard.
You had to
back
work
then.
at it for a while.
It was the beard.
Yeah.
I didn't have a beard back
You
then.
still didn't have a beard.
No, I had like a little fuzz, but you weren't. The job I had, they didn't like you having facial hair.
Gotcha.
So they
That
didn't think
makes
it was
sense.
professional enough. I
Yeah.
was like,
Right.
whatever.
Now it's becoming more acceptable.
Yeah.
And now you're your own boss.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
well, except for I'm sure Natalie has
Yes.
to.
Well, she's the boss.
Yeah, she's the higher ranking officer.
Yes, she is.
Which let's hear your side of the Navy experience, Natalie. So I know you said earlier you joined at age 18.
Mhm.
What prompted you to do that?
I wanted the free education. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted like the adventure and the journey. I just didn't want to go to community college is what we could afford and just stay in the county and just do that. So I went to talk to the recruiter and he got me like super excited about being on a ship. And I was gone 2 weeks later. They signed me up right then and there. Came home and told my parents I was leaving in 2 weeks. My mom's passing out and having a cow over it. And she was not happy at
She was
first.
not having it.
No, but my dad was a Marine, so he was super proud. But yeah, so I mean, in like talking about it with other people, like in high school, people are like, "Oh, you'd never make it in the military," and like, you tell me I can't do something, like hold my beer, hold my beer. So yeah, so it was definitely something I wanted to do. But yeah, so I was in for almost 16 years, active and inactive reserve. But yeah, so I started out as enlisted. So I went to Great Lakes like Blane did. This is 94, 95. I did 6 years and I was an E6. And then I finished my bachelor's degree like while I was enlisted, while I was going to sea and all that. And my first duty station was actually Japan, where he wanted to go. So I left at 18. I was in Japan at 18, lived there for 2 years. It was amazing.
So you were where is the? I'm sure there's more than one. I would assume, but where in Japan, like as far as naval bases?
So I was
right?
in Yokosuka. I mean, there's Yokohama, there's Atsugi, there's Misawa, there's several Air Force bases and Navy bases there. But I was in Yokosuka. It's one of the main ports there. So it was where the aircraft carriers are at and everything.
What was your first impression of Japan when you showed up there?
Very alien-like. It was just something like, because when I picked to go to Japan, I wanted to go to the place that I could never imagine myself being. That was so different from what I knew. And I definitely picked right because everything was different. The culture, the language, the food, just everything. Walking down the street and nothing looks like it does here. So and this is what I wanted and I loved it. And honestly, Japan is like my favorite country in the entire world. Like it's the most peaceful place, the most courteous, kind people. I just love it there.
I've heard it's very clean.
It's very clean
as well.
Yes, very clean.
What was something that you when like you stepped off the ship and you're walking around Japan for the first time? What do you remember?
Well, I remember a lot of like everything's lit up. It's kind of like Manhattan and New York, how they have the big billboards.
Yeah.
So like Tokyo, Yokohama, Shibuya, all that is kind of like that. So it was like tons of people. I mean, there's just people. You go on the trains, the subways, people's arms are sticking out the doors and the legs, and they're packed in, like they literally have people pushing people into the train to pack them in. So I just thought that was like very odd that there's so many people there and they're just like having arms flailing out the train as it's going down the tracks. But there's just people everywhere, and so that was different for me coming from even Chicago because it's not packed like it is in Japan.
No, definitely not. Chicagoans like their space like
Yeah.
every other Midwesterner,
Um,
you know.
but to be so crowded, they're so courteous and kind to everybody. You don't need to lock your doors. You don't need to lock up your bikes. Everybody's kind, and it is clean. Everything is clean, and there's so many people there. Somebody drops something, they pick it up, and so it's kind of amazing.
I've heard several different people talk about their visits to Japan, whether it's in the military or not, and
Mhm.
they're just talking about how you don't see cigarette butts, you don't
Nope.
see like
The
any of that.
beaches, I mean, all the beaches are pristine, so it's definitely different than living in the United States. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I don't know anybody who's had a bad experience or had a bad, bad time in Japan. It's just beautiful there, and
What's something that sticks with you from living in Japan for those 2 years to this day?
oh boy,
I mean, besides the culture, or what's something you kind of picked up while being there?
probably my love of ramen because I hated ramen before that. He loves ramen.
And now ramen
I love ramen.
is a huge thing.
I
There's
know.
a ton of ramen restaurants throughout
love.
Chicago.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
love ramen.
And for a while, you couldn't get ramen anywhere, and you'd go to a Japanese restaurant. Even some of them here don't have ramen, even though they call them so Japanese. But yeah, because I went to Japan, I didn't like seafood. I didn't eat fish, which is
And you're in the Navy, you don't
I know.
like seafood.
being in Japan, it's all sushi, seafood, and ramen. So I'm like, well, let's try this ramen stuff, and I loved it.
What was the craziest food that you tried? Because I know that
I don't try crazy food.
Yeah,
No.
you just kept
Nope.
it. Oh, Blaine's the crazy
yeah,
one.
so, like, I mean-
because they what is it? Like the squid and all that.
Octopus and-
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
didn't indulge in
Oh, no,
that.
no. So I've
Okay.
never been a big meat eater. I'm actually a vegetarian now.
Okay.
So none of that ever intrigued me. I was like, no, you can keep that. And like going to the grocery stores in Japan, the deli would have like samples of crickets and, grasshoppers, and you could just pick one up. Nope, not going to try it. No.
I heard they're really good dipped in chocolate.
I'm not going to find
they
out.
do that.
They
too.
are. They're
Yeah.
very good.
See,
He'll eat anything. He'll eat anything in chocolate or not. But no, I'm not a adventurous eater like as far as that.
But
no.
you do eat seafood, being a vegetarian.
No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't eat
Okay.
anything that has to be harmed
Okay.
for my sustenance.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Because I don't know what isn't there a specific name for a vegetarian that eats seafood
Pescatarian.
or pescatarian?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't eat any meat. Not
Okay.
vegan, but I eat a lot of vegan. I don't do a lot of dairy either,
Hmm.
but definitely vegetarian.
Okay. So going to Japan was like your first deployment or
yeah, I
or
mean,
first.
I was on shore duty in Japan, so it was my first duty station. So yeah, it was my first time out of the United States, first time out of Illinois, first time on a plane, all at 18. So I was there for about 2.5 years, and then came back to San Diego, or my next duty station was San Diego, and I went to a squadron, which was attached to the USS Abraham Lincoln. So with the squadrons, when the Abraham Lincoln was up in Bremerton, Washington,
Okay.
they'd come down to San Diego and they'd pick up all the squadrons. So we'd load up our offices, bring them on the ship, go on our deployment, come back, 6-9 months later, and then we offload again. And that's how so when the ship wasn't there, we were actually like on a shore duty type of assignment. But I was in San Diego for about 4 or 5 years. Went up north to Oxnard and like Ventura area. Was at a CB base for a while, and that's where I was on my actual shore duty in the States. And I was actually able to finish my degree and go to college while I was, in the Navy. Then I went back down to San Diego, and then I applied for an officer program, and I was picked up for that. So as an E6, I went into officer candidate school to become an ensign. Yeah, and so then I did that for a few more years, and then I decided to just get out.
So what was your official title then?
As an officer or enlisted?
Officer.
As an officer, I was a surface warfare officer.
Okay.
And then I got out as a lieutenant,
Oh wow.
which was in 03.
Okay.
So yeah, so like when I was in E6 in the Navy, I was on track to become a chief. I probably would have been a master chief if I had stayed enlisted because I made rank like first time every time. As an officer, as a junior officer, you lose the respect you have as a senior enlisted. And I think I would have made a bigger difference if, I was a senior enlisted rather than switching over and becoming a junior officer. And you're an ensign and you're like the lily person on the ship. And, not even the E4s and E5s like respect you, whether you have that prior experience or not, and as enlisted. So I kind of wish I stayed in and like stayed as enlisted, but
Generally, you see an ensign, you're like, this guy has no idea what they're doing. Because normally you just see like the butter bar and you're like, oh, well, this guy just got out of college. He knows nothing about the military, because you don't know that they had 8 years experience beforehand and could probably wipe the deck with you with their knowledge until they start talking. You're like, oh, man, I better shut up now.
And so what was your official title? You said you were an officer too, or no? You were
No. I was enlisted. I made it to E5 as I was getting out, but I was a bosun.
Okay.
I drove the ship. Took orders from her. She said, starboard and port, and I was, yes, ma'am.
I love it. I absolutely love that. So were you on shore duty then during the time of September 11th?
I'm trying to yes, I was in Ventura at the time at a CB base.
So what was your experience being in the active military during September 11th?
Pretty scary because you don't know what's going on. I remember I was at home in my apartment getting ready to go to work, and my brother calls me and says, "Put on the news." Because my brother was here in Illinois, so we were 2 hours behind here. And I see it, and I don't think it's real. I don't know what's going on. So I call my office, and on the base, I'm like, "You need to come to work right now. Like, you need to just come here. They're shutting down the base." So everybody who was assigned to the base had to come to the base, whether it's your day off or not. Come to the base, your families, and then they're shutting down the base. So we had to stay there. We're there for probably about 12, 18 hours. But yeah, like you just watch this on the news with everybody else, and you don't know what's going on. And, are we going to war right now? I mean, am I going to pack my bags and am I going somewhere? And you just don't know what's going on. And like your family's calling you and asking you, are you okay? And,
So what happened after, like right when that happened that day, when you got to, wherever you were going,
we sat in our lounge the entire day and watched the news. We just watched the TV. So at that time I worked for an officer. It was an engineering and duty officer school. So the young engineers would come in and go through the school. And I was one of the admin support there. And there was no school that day. We all just sat, in the classrooms or in the lounges and just watched the TV and just watched it with the rest of the world.
Okay. So it wasn't like you were sitting on a base.
No. I mean, I was on the base. It was a base.
That's true.
But they shut us down because the school's on the base. But, I wasn't on a ship or I wasn't overseas or, I was secure on a base just watching this with the rest of the world. And that was like shortly after that is when I was accepted to the officer program. And within months, I was gone to Florida for officer candidate school. And I remember watching when they said they had, caught Osama bin Laden. I remember they gave us this big announcement at officer candidate school about, this has happened and we got to celebrate for that day, or we got like less push-ups and, we got our ass kicked like less that day. It was like, a little bit of a retreat.
Hey, well, only do 50 push-ups instead of 100 or whatever, or whatever it was. So was Japan the only time you traveled?
No, so when I was with the squadron, we went on to the Abraham Lincoln. I've been to Australia many times, and Hawaii, Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, Italy, Spain. I can't even think of all the places I've been to be honest, but I haven't written down at home. Bahrain. Yeah. I mean, the UAE, so Dubai, just amazing places that I've been to. So most of those were on, you go off the ship on ports.
And so by the time you two met, you were both out of the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And you meet in California?
San Diego.
Right. Mm-hmm. San Diego. And then, so you come back here to Illinois eventually. I don't know how many years later after that.
A year after.
Yeah, it was a year after that. Okay. We weren't even married when he came back here. He followed me here. Didn't even. It's a true story.
Stalker.
Yeah.
I was actually trying to get back in the military when we met.
Yeah.
Were you trying to get back into the Navy or a different branch?
I was actually trying to get into OCS for the Marine Corps for intelligence. And I met her and I actually called my captain when she said she was moving. And I was like, hey, I'm going to steal a line from a really crappy movie. I got to go see about a girl.
And then that was the end of...
And that was the end of that. And I packed up my backpack and my one cardboard box and came out here with her.
Okay. So you come and live in Manteno. And this has been just the last how many years now?
11 or 12.
12 years ago.
12
yeah.
years now because our kids are
9.
almost 10. So, yeah.
So when you get here to Manteno, what did you guys start doing for jobs and such?
Well, at first we did nothing because we came here. It was kind of an emergency situation with my dad passing. It wasn't planned.
Yes.
So
Sorry
we came
for your
here.
loss.
Thank you. We quit our jobs. Well, I quit my job and he followed me. But we had no jobs. We had nowhere to live. So I was staying with my mom, kind of like unemployed, figuring out what are we going to do. And he eventually got a job at Great Lakes. So he was commuting from Manteno to Great Lakes every day.
Oh, boy.
Doing the IT stuff that he does. And then I eventually got a job at Navistar in Lyle. And from there, we just kind of, did the things I was a project manager. That's kind of what I did. And he did IT. So we kind of stuck with that until we opened the brewery.
Yeah.
But
And how did the brewery come about? I'm excited to hear it. Has it been
Almost 3.
almost 3? I was thinking it's
February. It'll be 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Time flies. It still feels like yesterday.
I know. It does, I know.
We actually, one of her brothers bought me a Mr. Beer kit, like that little plastic jug.
Yes.
And as I do with most things, I just stuck it in the cabinet and then forgot it existed. And it was probably 6 months later. She was like, either you brew this or I'm throwing it in the trash. And I had absolutely no desire to brew beer. I was like, why would I do that? I can go to Burcott's 2 minutes away and come back with an entire case of Samuel Adams. Why would I want to brew the beer and do all this stuff for it? So she's like, well, why don't you just brew it? And, you can tell my brother you brewed it and we can try it and see how it tastes. So I was like, all right. So it was an American wheat that I was brewing. And it takes all of 20 minutes to make that small batch.
That's it?
Yeah. Well, those small batches, you mostly just boil syrup. There's no, now it's, 9-10 hours worth of brewing.
I was going to say.
But these little ones, it's mostly just a concentrated syrup that you boil in some water and you dump it in, pitch the yeast. Well, I did it. I put it all in there and then I went to the fridge and I opened up the cherry wheat from Samuel Adams. And I was like, man, I just brewed a wheat. I should put cherries in it. So I went to Burcott's and I bought some cans of cherries and I just dumped it in there into the fermenter, which then did not know what yeast and sugar do with each other. And it made a giant mess all over our kitchen.
As if it foams,
Oh, yeah.
right?
It popped the top right off and there was just red juice everywhere.
Ceiling walls.
Yeah.
Cherry
Was
juice.
it stained?
Yeah, I ended up painting the ceiling. And then she was like, now that ceiling doesn't match the other ceilings down here. So
no.
I painted all the ceilings downstairs. So then I was like, that was really exciting. I'm going to do it again. So I bought a bigger
While
kit.
saluting.
So I went from a 2-gallon kit to a 6.5-gallon kit. But this time, instead of cherries, I'm doing a triple berry. But I was smart enough to put it in the basement with a bunch of plastic around. So I did a blueberry, raspberry, and blackberry.
That sounds delicious.
And it probably would have been.
It would have been, but once
literally
again,
blew up the carboy. It blew up the glass everywhere. There was just this red, blue, purple liquid all over the basement, all over the walls.
Back on the ceilings.
On the
rafters.
ceilings. It was everywhere. So I spent the time cleaning that up, cursing my name. And I'm like, I'm doing it again. I'm going to rebuy this kit. And I saw this free online book by John Palmer, who wrote a very basic brewing book back in the 80s. So I read that and I was like, oh, yeah. So yeast eats sugar, which creates alcohol. And if there's too much sugar, you're going to get very active yeast. And, it needs space to grow. And if you have it confined, it's going to do what anything does when it's confined in space and wants to expand. So that makes sense. So there's a thing called a secondary. We'll try that. All right, let's do this again. And I made a cherry wheat or a cherry cream ale, I think it was. Mm-hmm. I did a 5-gallon batch and we ended up drinking the entire 5 gallons, I think, on a Saturday once it was done. We drank it all. It was
just
so,
you two? Or?
Just the two of us.
Easily.
We started at noon and we drank. By the time we were done drinking, we were like, holy crap, did we just drink 5 gallons of beer between the two of us? But it was so good. It was
hey kids,
sweet.
You can make your own dinner tonight.
I was like, this is crazy. I mean, what that was I think that beer only had 2% alcohol in it. So it wasn't a lot because I hadn't quite figured out how to tell.
Percent. I'm like,
yeah, I hadn't quite figured out all the mathematics to brewing yet. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then I got to where I had to brew in the garage. I couldn't brew in the kitchen anymore because I had 3 different pots going that were 15 gallons apiece. And then I started doing all grain. So I was writing my own recipes after that, which I've had a few that didn't turn out. I tried making a bacon smoked red ale, which ended up tasting like green olives.
That doesn't sound very
Yeah.
good.
It was disgusting.
Well, the recipe, they give you like a whole ounce of this bacon extract, and it's like only use a quarter of it. I'm like, well, why would you give me an ounce if you only want me to use a quarter? I love bacon, and this is back when we ate meat. It's like, you know what? You people know what you're talking about. I'm a bacon kind of person. I'm using the whole thing. Turns out there's a reason they say only use a quarter.
It's like
It gets a little overpowering. You're just like, ugh.
it reminds me of when my brother and my brother Joe, we were kids and we'd bake cookies, and he really liked the vanilla extract, right? The vanilla flavor. He would put so much, instead of doing the 1 teaspoon or whatever it is of the vanilla extract, he would end up putting so much more of that. And we all know how potent the vanilla extract is, right? Just like just like the bacon extract. And it would be like you'd taste one of those finished, freshly baked cookies. Like, oh my God, that's a lot of vanilla. It'd almost be like your mouth would just, I'm thirsty. Like I'm parched. I need water.
I need liquids.
Yeah, I need liquids. So was it just you were obsessed with trying to perfect?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big science kind of guy. Like, I like chemistry, I like biology, and I like engineering things.
So it's surprising that
brewing kind of had it all.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising you just let that sit there for so long, considering that you like.
Well, I had no idea that it even consisted of any of those things. But then, it got to where, I need to upgrade my equipment, but I can't afford $3,000 brewing stuff. So I'd go to Lowe's, I'd buy a bunch of cheap metal, and I start making my own brew stations. And then I had like this 3-tier station that I would build. And she bought me a nice one for Christmas one year, which I still have. And so I just kept going, and I won some medals, and then, I got some honorable mentions for it, and I got to brew at a few other breweries. And I told her, it's like, man, let's start a brewery. She was like, all right, let's do that. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about, right? And it took us, I think we spent 6-8 years just trying to get like the funds together and get like the loans. And
so we must have gone, started a long time ago.
I must have gone through 40 or 50 different banks trying to get someone as stupid as me to say yes to the loan. And eventually we found one in...
I'm surprised it took that many because...
Well, you got a bunch of banks here. They're used to only lending to farmers. They don't know anything about brewing. So when you show them all the spreadsheets, they're like, this makes no sense. Like, how do you make money with beer? I'm like, people drink beer? Everybody drinks beer? I mean, that's how you make money on it? They're like, nah, we don't like this. Like, if you had a farm or something, we'd talk to you. I'm like, I don't have a farm.
So, I mean, it's kind of like a farm.
Yeah. I'm using stuff from a farm, but I ended up eventually finding a bank that deals strictly with breweries. Like, that's what they do. And
I'm still shocked, though, considering how the success of Brickstone, with the success of that brewery, you would think it would kind of be like, oh,
Well, with them, they're a restaurant also, like that's how it started for them. So they kind of grew into that position. They didn't start right off the bat in that way.
But still.
Also, though, when we were trying to get loans, we don't have $1 million investors. It was just me and Blane. Yeah. It's just us two on a normal paycheck trying to finance this brewery. Yeah. So it took a little longer because it was our own money that we had to save for all the down payments, and the bank would come back and say, look, I want another 10%. So then you save that for 10%, and then they want something else. So it's kind of going back and forth. But, we didn't have a bunch of people with a bunch of millions of dollars to invest in it. It was just us. This is kind of just a Blane and Natalie project, and it took a while.
Yeah.
So we weren't millionaires to begin with, and
right.
So we're still not millionaires, but
right. You're still right. You're still, you're still trying to make it to be a millionaire, right? Like we all of us are.
Yeah, that's the dream, right?
Yeah. So this is a 6 to 8 year process before you even actually opened up
before we've gotten to the building.
Location.
Yeah.
Now, during that time, were you selling beer to friends and family, or how does that?
Actually, my hobby was paid by a lot of like neighbors, because I had built a keezer in my garage, had 4 taps on it, and if the garage was open, people could come get beer, and they always just left like cash. sitting on my workbench. And so I would take that cash and then I would go buy more grain with it and then brew more beer with it. So it just kept growing like that. And I was like, man, we might be able to make this happen if we could get into a building. So, but once we got like the loan and we found a building and we started building it, it was just, the two of us and some friends just going to work, just build. And I would spend, 12, 15 hours every day in that place, just building. And then, we'd have some friends that would get off work. They'd come in for a couple hours and help. When the kids weren't trying to tear her entire reality apart, being kids, she would come in and she would help and like help me stain wood and cut wood and build tables and stuff like that. But no, that place, I mean, we put the walls together, the bars, the table. I mean, I had a friend do some of the plumbing in the bathroom, and then I did a lot of the plumbing behind the bar and the brew house. So it was definitely like a hands-on for us for, I think it took us 9 months, 9 months to actually, from a building that was completely blank, to have everything built inside of it.
Yeah, for those that aren't, familiar, the location you're in is a bunch of like what they call them, commercial suites, right?
Yeah, like industrial strip mall.
Industrial suites. Yeah, it's like an industrial strip mall off of, now I'm forgetting the name. Spruce. Thank you. Yep. Spruce and Manteno, which is, if you're not familiar, that would be right where the old Kmart warehouse is.
Yep.
Excuse me. You also have the John Deere dealer there.
Yep.
ABC, I think it's ABC.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
ABC's
the lumber.
So we got like right behind our buildings, like the Manteno lubrication.
Yes,
they do like
too.
the monster truck guys and stuff like that. Yeah,
really cool company to have in the county as well.
Yeah.
And then there's that industrial strip. Is there? I'm trying to remember. There's two. Is there just one building? Or there's two buildings back there.
There's two buildings. Yeah.
And so it's all these suites, and the super high ceilings and everything. Yep. And I've been in some of the other suites there, and it's just it's meant for obviously industrial.
Yeah.
Which is in a sense is kind of perfect for brewing.
Yeah,
but
we kind of do what we want out there. We're not right in the middle of town, so we can be loud and we can have big gatherings. And we're always throwing like a bunch of events there. Actually, one of our neighbors is JFB. They build like custom Jeeps and Broncos, and so we throw huge like Jeep events with them and car shows and stuff like that. And we fill the parking lot with Jeeps that are like just wild.
That's cool.
Like you could probably get like rockets off of them and then go to the moon and like drive around. Like they are, some of them are so insane looking. Yeah.
Hey, we're on the moon.
Yeah. Some of them are
Steam
so
Hollow.
Insane. Yeah. So we're always, the space is big enough that we can throw just tons of events all the time.
We had a wrestling event there last weekend.
Yeah.
Or 2 weekends ago. And we brought a wrestling ring in, a professional wrestling ring, and they did their match there. It was pretty cool.
That's
awesome.
So we could do some really cool things with that space.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So I guess we should probably get to what you, both of you are doing for Veterans Day, what Steam Hollow is doing for Veterans Day. I think Natalie in her email said you had teamed up with some other Navy veterans or some other vets to do a special brew.
So
right?
One of our regulars there is a chief, a Navy chief. He's a recruiter. And he was in drinking and he was talking to me. He's like, man, because I've done a beer with the Marine Corps. It'll be coming out soon, Jim's Dandy Stout. And he was like, we should do like a Navy one. I mean, you're a Navy guy. How come you don't do Navy stuff? I'm like, well, I don't know. You're best, I mean, come on, chief. So he was like, well, I'm a recruiter. I got a whole office of guys. Like, we should do a brew. I'm like, all right, so what do you want to do? He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, I'm a golden shellback. Let's do like a golden shellback beer. I'm like, I'm a golden shellback too. Let's definitely do that.
What's a golden shellback?
So a golden shellback is when you cross the date line and the equator simultaneously. So instead of just being like a shellback or like on WOG Day, you get to be on a golden shell. So you get the certificate that's all in color versus black and white.
What's that?
Do you know what WOG Day is?
I don't think so.
WOG Day is a huge Navy hazing day, or at least it used to be.
Initiation.
So
initiation.
In quotes.
So initiation, what does that usually consist of?
It usually consists of...
do I want to know?
It usually consists of anyone who's never done it before crawling through rotting garbage, like old food, sucking Tabasco sauce out of someo's belly button. Like it's just a lot of horrible stuff.
It's
you get
horrible,
hit with they hit you with like a fire hose, like with the water on it. It's cold.
Dude.
It's pretty much like the entire day you just get like with. the entire. It's
That
great.
does not sound like fun.
It was a blast.
It was,
would-
it was kind of fun.
I would
It was
cry
fun.
home to my mother
No,
if that was me.
I'd say probably 98% of the people had a lot of fun with it. Like it's humorous. Like none of it's like ill intentioned. It's just most of it's just humorous.
You would have found me in the
Yeah.
corner,
Yeah.
all curled up, crying.
yeah.
They have
in
a place
fetal
on the ship,
position.
so if you decide to decline the day,
Yeah, you
those
can.
few people went to the floor of the ship.
Yeah,
and
that's where I
they
would've
would
been.
sit. They had to study with the book. You have to sit there and study.
Oh, I can
and
do that.
You're going to be the outcast.
Yeah.
The rest of the ship's having fun. And
I am good at being an outcast.
Yeah,
Oh,
so it's
man.
not like you're forced to do it. It's something you just willingly do. Which
Yeah.
I had a blast doing. So we're gonna brew a beer and we're gonna call it Golden Shellback.
That makes perfect sense.
And so we're gonna brew a golden ale. And it's got like apple and cinnamon. We do one similar called Brass Apple, which is a huge hit. So we're gonna brew something similar to that and call it Golden Shellback. And we are doing that on Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, this Thursday,
we'll be
Veterans
brewing.
Day,
We'll be brewing
right?
Thursday.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this will be the one time in my life when I get to boss a chief around. It's gonna be great.
Man, I
Yeah.
mean, that might only be a one opportunity in a
Yeah.
lifetime.
Exactly.
That you can,
Yeah.
that you can
So,
do this.
And I'm pretty sure most of his office if I were still in service, would be outranking me anyways. So I get to boss all of them around. Like this is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is something people can they can go to Steam Hollow and they can get this brew right on Veterans Day? Or
No, we're gonna
no?
brew it on Veterans Day.
Okay.
It will be a couple weeks after that. We'll have it on tap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then there's also an event coming up this Saturday
Yes.
as well. That's veterans based too.
Yep. So we are teaming up with our good friend Eric Peterson from Project Headspace and Timing. And we are doing a veteran showcase. It is going to be, the brewery is going to be full of veteran artists, veteran crafters, veteran business owners. Mia Bell's Pizza will be there. They're veterans.
Yes.
Um,
Aren't they Navy too, or is it
Air
Army?
Force.
It's Air Force.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Their pizza is so good,
I
though.
know they have the best pizza. It's the best. So they'll be there that afternoon. It's from 1 to 5. Chris James, he's also going to be performing.
Yeah, he's a Marine, former Marine.
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll have a bunch of just different vendors, either showing off their crafts or selling their crafts. We'll have Buddy Check 22 there. I believe the VA home will be there. We'll have Kankakee County Veterans Assistance Commission there. So a bunch of different organizations supporting veterans or veterans that are, supporting each other. So it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you didn't get a chance to go out to Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods in
Mhm.
Manteno, it's almost like a mini version of that. You have all these wonderful organizations there that are veteran involved that
Mhm.
you can check out,
Yep.
So, and it's good to have those type of events year round because
Right.
not every, someone might have, maybe they were on vacation when Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods happened in August or
Right.
Yeah.
whatever. Maybe something else came up in the family and they weren't able to be there, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. So it's going to be a really great event. We're super excited to team up with their, organization again.
Eric is so
Okay.
wonderful. He
Yeah.
he helped me put these desks in here.
Oh, really?
Yes, I had put a post on Facebook. Just needing a friend to help me bring these down into our recording space in my basement. And I know you can't physically see these right now because this is a podcast. But if you haven't seen pictures of our studio space, there's 4 of these big desk pieces that Eric brought me or helped me bring down here, and these 2 corner like pieces were the ones that were
Yeah.
the biggest pain in the butt.
Don't really
And,
fit through a door too well.
Yeah, that was a challenge, and they were heavy and just big, and so that was a real challenge bringing down here. So I'm forever grateful for that. And Eric ended up being the very first guest on Kankakee Podcast because I'm like, well, I was going to have Eric on anyway, and I was like, since he did that, it's like it just makes sense. So that's great that you're working with Eric at or for this this veteran showcase that's coming up this Saturday. So that's November 12th.
November, is it 12th or 13th?
Is it- Or is it?
Oh, boy. Hang on. Hang on.
I thought we
13.
It's the 13th.
It is the
So
13th.
it's November
My
13th
apologies.
from 1 to 5.
Okay.
Yep. There'll be food, music, and a bunch of veteran organizations and vendors there.
Awesome. Is there anything else that's coming up at Steam Hollow you guys want to? I mean, obviously, people need to be on the lookout for that special Veterans Day brew, even though it won't be on Veterans Day. But that's the whole
Right,
point
and we'll
behind it.
and we will announce it. We'll have pictures of that day when the Chiefs are brewing it with Blane, and we'll definitely announce when the beer is ready and it's going to be on tap.
Okay.
But yeah, so like we just got done with doing a bunch of events in October that no use to talk about that now. But our next big event would be the day before Thanksgiving. We're doing our third annual Black Wednesday celebration.
Okay.
So we have Mia Bella's Pizzas there that night, and then Who's Your Day will be performing from 7 to 10 p.m. So it's always been a great hit. Everyone's like, tired of cooking the day before, kind of come out and kind of rest up, and before the big day for Thanksgiving. So that's our next big event for November.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to add to talking about Steam Hollow? Or obviously we want to encourage people to check out Steam Hollow, on Spruce in Manteno.
Yeah. If you guys haven't been there, we're 7,500 square feet. We're huge. You can bring your kids with you. You can bring your dog with you. So you
allow dogs?
Mm-hmm. The whole family can come.
Okay.
Love puppies.
Yeah, we love the dogs. Sometimes we like the dogs more than the customers. Dogs don't have the money.
They don't.
There's a few regulars come with their dog. We greet their dog before them. Like we'll leave the bar and go pet their dog, and then ask them what they want to drink.
Yeah. Hi, Paul. I didn't see you there.
Now I'm gonna pet your dog. You just stand aside real quick.
Yeah. Go get yourself a beer. I don't care about you unless you're buying my beer.
The space is pretty big. We do a lot of different events. We do like weddings in there. Last night we had 2 birthday parties. One of them had a reservation for a 40-year-old birthday party, and they came in and set up. And then these other 2 ladies came in a few hours later with balloons the same color for another 40-year-old birthday party. And they were looking at the other balloons in theirs. And they're like, did someone else already set up our party for us? I was like, did you guys make the reservations? Like, no, we were just coming in to do this. And I was like, so there's 2 birthday parties for 40-year-olds, and you guys bought the same balloons? Like,
wow.
What are the odds of that? Man. But I mean, we had 2. I mean, they were both really large party. I mean, I think one of them had like 60, 70 people. The other one had another 20 or 30 people. So the area is big enough that you can throw pretty much any kind of event you want in it.
Okay.
But I mean, we do markets on Sundays. Natalie she sets up this whole market thing. It's all these really great vendors in there. She always gets like really good like live music during these markets.
Tomorrow's our next one, actually, from 1 to 5. I forgot about that.
Okay.
I'm so busy. I forget all the events.
Is that a weekly thing or is that like a monthly thing?
It's kind of a every other Sunday event. So in the summers, we do them once a month, but throughout the year, we do them twice a month. So right now, tomorrow starts today's Saturday, right? Yeah. Yeah. So tomorrow starts our first holiday market.
Yeah.
So we'll have 18 vendors inside, live music. The neighborhood kitchen is there serving brunch and lunch. So you can get biscuits and gravy, and we do beer mimosas on those Sundays. So you can bring the kids and the dogs. It's a great family event. But yeah, so we, like I said, going back to what I was saying before, we have this huge space. You can bring the family, bring your dog. We have a pool table in there. We have bags in there. We have a big cart of all kinds of games and cards and coloring books. So Sundays are a great day for the families to come out, and like kids are playing a game with the family, or there's just, so much you can do there.
I feel like we didn't talk enough about beer, though. So I feel like
there's beer. There's beer.
I feel like I should ask this question. What do you have on tap, or what are the beers that you're most well known for, most well liked for? Now that you've had your doors open for almost 3 years.
We keep we don't go with just one style. Like it's not just a bunch of IPAs, not just a bunch of hazies, not just a bunch of stout. Like I keep a wide range. I think right now I have everything from like a 12% imperial stout to a beer that's only like 3% that tastes like a watermelon Jolly Rancher. So
that sounds delicious.
Yeah, so we do
all over that.
Definitely something for everybody. So people come in and say, "Well, I don't drink beer. I don't like beer." We will find them something they like.
Yeah,
it's usually one of our fruit beers or one of our cream beers, but we'll find them something.
We made a hard seltzer that tastes like a cherry squirt. It doesn't taste like aspirin, so a lot of people are enjoying that. All of our beers have enzyme in them that actually breaks down gluten chains, so that people that are gluten intolerant can drink all the beers.
Okay.
So when I've had a few guinea pigs that I use. Some of our customers that are like heavy on celiac. My stepfather's really bad on celiac. Like he will be down for days, and he comes out on Christmas and he gets completely plastered. because he starts at the top of the list. We have 16 taps, and he goes all the way down to the bottom of the list because he wants to try every. He's like, I can drink all these beers. I am trying all of them. I'm like, you're going to be here for a week. You can spread it out. Nope, we're doing it right now.
Oh, that's so cool. I was once having I was having dinner with one of my sponsors for another podcast that I do, and my girlfriend and I were having dinner with him in New York, and he was drinking beer, and his face was starting to, like, I don't know, break out or hives, or I forget what it was, but he's like, I forgot to take my medication so that I can drink my beer. And he explained, he's technically allergic, and so if he ever makes his way out here, I'll be like, hey, I know a place.
Sure.
Yeah.
It'll be right up your alley, bud.
Yeah. So I mean, we get. I think we just Natalie had an event in there, paint night, I think it was, and one of the ladies was like, well, what do you have that's not beer? And I was like, do you not like beer? She's like, well, I can't drink it, I'm sick. I was like, well, I mean, when I have a hard seltzer, we usually have a cider on tap. I was like, well, you can get one of those, but you can drink any of the beers here. I told her the whole thing. She's like, I don't know, I don't want to risk it. I'm like, all right. And I was like, I'll tell you what, here's a cider, and you can have a sample of one of the beers and try it. And in 20 minutes, if you're not turning into the Hulk and breaking the building down, that you can drink the beer. She ended up staying for like 3 hours after paint night with her friends and just went down the list and started trying all the beers that she could. She was like, this is great. Like, I can finally drink beer again. I'm like, well, I got you back.
Cool. That's awesome. That's really important to know. So Natalie and Blane, thank you both so much for being here. Thank you for your service. And I'm happy that we have this incredible, veteran-owned business brewery in our county. It's a wonderful thing. So it sounds like you guys are serving the community in many different capacities, all kinds of different events happening at Steam Hollow, which is fantastic. So, so thank you guys, and look forward to talking with you again sometime.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake LaMore. Thank you so much for listening. And to all of our veterans, thank you for serving our country. I know that's something that we all take for granted each and every day, that we're able to live our lives and do what we want just because we're able to do those things because of all of those who served. So thank you if you are one of those people. Please go back if you haven't done so already, and you can catch up on previous episodes of Kankakee Podcast at kankakeepodcast.com or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It's on all the major platforms like Apple, Spotify, Google, and Stitcher, and all the other ones you can think of. And also, you can follow us on social media at Kankakee Podcast. That's for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're on TikTok as well, although I haven't done too much with the TikTok account yet. I need to figure out exactly what I'm doing for content there. But regardless, we are there on TikTok as well. And I look forward to talking with you next week. A new episode drops every Monday. Our theme song is by Lupe Carroll.
People tend to